Evet, saygıdeğer belediye başkanlarım, çok kıymetli konuklar, hepinizi saygıyla selamlıyorum. Hoş geldiniz, sefalar getirdiniz. Bugün değerli belediye başkanlarımızla şehirlerimizi konuşacağız. Marmara eksenli konuşacağız. Tabii sempozyumun ana konusu dayanıklılık ve ötesi olduğu için dayanıklılığın çeşitli pencerelerinden bakacak belediye başkanlarımız. Toplamda 7 konuşmacımız var. Şu anda 6 tane konuşmacımız burada, biri yolda. Ben moderatör olarak devam edeceğim. Akademik dünyada şöyle bir şey vardır. Araya moderatörler konuşmalara katılarak konuşmacılardan çok konuşurlar. Korsan tebliğ sunarlar, korsan konuşmalar yaparlar. Ben öyle yapmayacağım. Olabildiğince az müdahale edeceğim. Açmak gerektiğinde araya sorularla girebilirim tabii. İlk konuşmacımız, onun öncesinde şunu konuşmacılarımıza ifade edeyim. Aslında iki ana başlığı var çerçevenin. Biri şehrin dayanıklı olması için yapılan hazırlıklar kısmı. Şehirlerimizi dayanıklı şehirler haline getirmek üzere çeşitli işler yapıyoruz. Dayanıklılık dediğimizde genellikle akla deprem geliyor ama bu sadece depremle alakalı bir şey değil. İşte gıda güvenliği açısından alınan tedbirler de, küresel ısınmaya ilişkin alınan tedbirler de bunun içinde. Marmara Denizi, Marmara Belediyeler Birliği olmamız hasebiyle tam da merkezde. Birinci boyut bu. Şehri dayanıklı hale getirmek için belediye başkanları neler düşünürler, neler yaptılar, neler tavsiye ederler? Bu 3 alt soru başlığı altında. İkinci kısmında ise Marmara bölgesinde çalışan belediye başkanları olarak acaba afetlere hazırlık anlamında, afet anında ve afetten sonra yine bu 3 başlık olmak üzere nasıl daha iyi koordine olabiliriz? Bu çerçevede toplantımız devam edecek. Toplam 90 dakika süremiz var. 10'ar dakika başkanlarımıza vereceğim. Bu çerçevesini çizdiğim 2 ana başlık altındaki 6 tane alt başlık üzerindeki fikirlerini onlardan paylaşmasını isteyeceğim. İlk konuşmacımız Bursa Büyükşehir Belediye Başkanı. Çok tecrübeli bir belediyeci. 2 dönem İnegöl'de bir ilçe, Bursa'nın Büyükçekmece bir ilçesinin belediyesinde başkanlık yaptı. Uzunca bir süredir de Büyükşehir Belediye Başkanlığı yapıyor. Kendisiyle eskiye dayanan bir dostluğumuz var. Bize kıymetli şeyler söyleyeceğine yürekten inanıyorum. Kendisi aynı zamanda Türkiye Sağlıklı Kentler Birliği'nin de başkanlığı görevini yürütüyor. Değerli başkanım, süreniz 10 dakika. Teşekkür ediyorum. Buyurun, söz sizde.
Çok teşekkür ederim. Saygıdeğer oturum başkanım, kıymetli başkanlarımız, belediyelerimizin, kurumlarımızın çok kıymetli yöneticileri, temsilcileri, muhtemelen öğrenci kardeşlerimiz ağırlıkta, sevgili öğrenci kardeşlerim ve basın mensupları, ben de hepinizi sevgiyle, saygıyla selamlıyorum. Vakti de ekonomi kullanmak adına da hemen konuşmalarıma başlamak istiyorum. Arkadaşlar, bildiğiniz gibi günümüz dünyasında iklim değişikliği, doğal afetler, pandemiler gibi küresel zorluklar giderek artıyor. Şimdi benim 4. dönem olunca 19,5 yıldır belediye başkanıyım. Bana gelenlere söylüyorum, yani aday olmayı düşünüyorum ben veya belediye başkan adayı olacağım. İşte her aday da böyle çok inanır ya olacağına falan, böyle kesin benim diyor, bana biraz tüyo verir misin falan, böyle dönem dönem yaşıyorum böyle şeyler. Yeni dönemde diyorum 2 şey özellikle çok konuşulacak. İklim değişikliği, ikincisi de deprem. Dolayısıyla da dayanıklılık konusu, her ikisi de aslında bu konu başlığıyla alakalı konular. Tabii bu zorluklar karşısında şehirlerimizin daha dayanıklı olması ve olası risklere karşı hazırlıklı olması gerekir. Dayanıklılık nedir? Biraz kavram itibariyle arkadaşlar şey yapabilir, yani çelişkiye düşürebilir bizi. Bir sistemin veya toplumun bir kriz durumunda işlevini sürdürme.
Resilience is that a structure or a community is able to return to their former selves after natural disasters. So there are different aspects of it. Resilience, you have to be resilient socially, economically, and physically. So for a resilience and for the sustainability of cities, you need alternative resources, inclusivity, strong economy, support of innovation, and disseminating of information. In this sense, to have a more physical resilience, we are making physical analysis and doing urban transformation. For social resilience, we are strengthening the capacity of the inhabitants of the city. And thirdly, to strengthen the economic resilience, we are strengthening the infrastructure. I will talk about firstly, I will talk about the urban transformation under the physical resilience. So unplanned urbanism and environmental distortion leads to the resilience and makes resilience the most important topic. I won't make a difference between different political parties. Nobody talks about resilient cities. And I can say up front that an urban transformation which makes everyone happy is impossible. Because even when people are changing their cars, there is a price to pay, because you have a car for 30 years and you want to give your car and buy a new one, and you have to pay extra. This is the cost. But when you change your house, and people don't expect to pay extra. They say, okay, I have a house for 30 years, which is not registered, and I will give my house, and during the urban transformation, you are going to give me 3 houses. This is impossible. You cannot do this. This is not feasible economically. So we have the Hanlar area in the city center. You can see it here. And we show that with the... I'm tearing down, because tearing down is important, because you are getting rid of the optical pollution. So we have 16 already working urban transformations and 8 planned. So we are planning to have a urban transformation in an area as large as 382 hectares. So we started construction 2017 in this region, and 2023, this year, we opened this. So it took us from 22 to 23, 1 year. So the cities are developed in regards of the water, of course, because water is important. And we are already talking about that we will have water wars in the future. So there is a strong correlation between water and urbanism. And the water pollution in the cities are due to the industrial waste, and we also have flooding in these areas, and we see that water needs are rising from day to day, and the level of sustainable water is also an indicator for a civilization, and our demands are in the increase, of course, so we have to be able to use this water logically. So we built over 20 different wastewater treatment plants. We have 7 towns in the province of Bursa, which have also a coast to the Marmara Sea. We met with the mayors in these towns, and we talked about the mucilage, the sea snot, and can this reappear? Yes, of course. But we are working on this, and for the year 2025, we are planning to have a pipeline of 150 kilometers to get water to Bursa. And Evliya Çelebi wrote about Bursa 600 years ago that it's a very green and blue city. But back then, the population was not even 1/20th of this now. And we have over almost 3.5 million people living in Bursa. So we are not very wealthy in terms of water, quite the opposite. So we need to take drastic measures when it comes to water. The loss of water, when I talk about loss of water, is from the source to the household are around 70%. So we are number one when it comes to water loss, but we are making infrastructure investments. But when you make a small children's playground, for example, for a very little money, then you make a lot of fanfare. But when you are doing so large investments, because it's underground, it's not celebrated at all. But this is the future of our country, so this is important. We were with a couple of mayors in Japan to study, to work about the sustainable water and, of course, earthquake, and solid waste. So solid waste is another problem, is another challenge, which will expect us also in the future. And we are working with the solid waste management of around 3,500 tons per day. And these solid waste is a waste, and we should use the potential what lies behind it. So you know the stadium of Bursa, and this means you can fill up the stadium 7 times with the solid waste you accumulate in 1 year. So before I became a mayor, I never knew where the garbage went. But now I know that you can earn money with garbage, and we are doing it as well. We are gaining money from solid waste, and of course, it's also important that that the people who live in Bursa are doing also source separation. So we are using these in 2 different waste treatment plants. One is already established and the other one is in the building phase. We don't do wild dumping anymore. We don't have that anymore. And hopefully when we also close up the one in the city, we will have a botanical garden there. And from the 8,500 tons of mud, we are incinerating and producing energy out of it. So you can't tell this to people, the population, of course, because nobody knows what happens to the solid waste that once it's been picked up. Of course, the environmental engineers know that, but we are reducing the amount with mechanical selection or sorting around 60%. So we take the rest, we take the household or the domestic waste into methanization processes to produce gas and electricity out of it. So we also know that the greenhouse gases lead to a warming of the climate. So that's why we have to use renewable energies, of course, in the ceilings of the metro stations or our own plants, for example, where we are treating water, for example. We produce 145 kilowatts of electrical energy per year, and this leads to 150 million liras of income. So to the social activities, what are our social activities? The municipalities are the local representative of the social state, of course, so that's why we are supporting our citizens. We don't send food to people. No, we have a card system, and we have the Buscope system where we give scholarship for young students, and we are in need of blue-collar workers as well. I don't want to be misunderstood, but I studied in the university, and my daughter does it as well. But who is going to work on the field? So we need blue-collar workers as well. So we started Burskop, where we give these scholarships, and the children from the vocational schools have increased from 10,000 to 20,000. So we have other systems like Kadınız Biz, mobile, or the mobile systems to send help to the elderly. And 90,000 people are using it, and we are 100,000 people per year are using the elderly services. So economic resilience is the third part. And in the regional planning, we have a comprehensive look at the problems in the world, and we have BICO, where people are looking for career. People ask me for a job, and I'm not interested in that. I don't do that anymore, and I'm sure every mayor has the same problem. So if you have the qualifications, you can log on to BICO and find a scholarship or a workplace there. And agriculture is very important for us. We are doing large investments in the area, and starting from the nurseries for trees and plants and crops. And our export was $184 million, and it's raised to $569 billion. So we have 45 women's cooperatives, and these are, we are exporting with the produce of these cooperatives. We are exporting into Europe and into the European Union. Yet I'm sure that nobody in these 11 provinces talked about the earthquake before the earthquake happened. But then we had 50,000 people dead. I was in Kobe lastly in Japan, and this is Japan, and it took them 15 years, and they made 7,000 people were dead, and they have planned for 3 to 5 years until they decided what to reconstruct again, rebuild again. But 7,000 people died in Kobe, and we are talking about 50,000 people. And we see that the awareness of the earthquake is already lost on people. So we have to find resilient solutions in every step of the way. Like I talked about, the physical, the social, and economic resilience. We have to work on all of these areas. This is a must, and this should be an awareness, and everybody should adopt this awareness. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you here. Thank you. Thank you, dear Mayor. Yes, he talked about each and every topic when it comes to resilient cities. And in the example of Bursa, Bursa is one of the cities which has the most capacity and can build an example. So I want to go over to Sakarya, and the mayor of Sakarya is now here at the podium, and he worked as a mayor in the Metropolitan Municipality area and also in the townships, and he has large experience in this area. And when it comes to food, or let me rephrase it, let's start with the food aspect of resilience. So because Sakarya has very well examples here. So please keep yourself short and restricted to 10 minutes. So we have 70. When we have 60 minutes left, your time is up.
Çok değerli başkanım.
Thank you very much, distinguished mayors, distinguished chair, distinguished participants. I would like to greet each and every one of you and wish you all a wonderful and fruitful meeting. And I wish it benefits all of our cities and our country, and greet you all with much love, admiration and affection. I've been warned concerning the time. So in 10 minutes I will give you the summary of the summary of the summary of all of our topics. Of course, Bursa is an ancient city. It's an important city. So I understand if I'm not allocated as much time as the mayor of Bursa. We are a fairly recent settlement compared to Bursa. I will make good use of the time allocated to me to the best of my ability. Distinguished participants, all municipalities are based on one principle. It is the main duty of municipalities to provide infrastructure, superstructure, waterways, sewage systems, sanitary facilities, and other similar facilities. Later on, social municipalities were added. This is quite widespread now. Municipalities are also nowadays concerned with social issues. And this is still not enough. Municipalities and their responsibilities have been upgraded once again, and this is something that we came to realize during the pandemic, which is to increase the level of income of its citizens and to increase the standards of living. One of the most important items to increase the levels of income, and all cities in our country are suitable for this, is to increase agricultural activities, which is now part of our responsibilities. This is something that we hadn't really paid attention to before the pandemic, but with the pandemic, or because of it, we saw once again that agricultural activities are very important, and this is why we have engaged in those activities. So physical, social, and agricultural municipal activities are our areas of responsibility, and this is what I would like to talk to you about. So, as I've mentioned, Sakarya is a fairly recent settlement. However, it's quite strategically positioned in that it is at the crossroads of the southern northern highways, the eastern western highways. So without crossing or passing by Sakarya, you're not able to go to Europe or vice versa to Asia. The most important highways pass by Sakarya. Kuzey Ormanları Highway, TEM, the speed train railways, high-speed train railways pass by Sakarya. So Sakarya is not to be neglected. It's a major player. So we are very importantly positioned in that regard. And we sit on top of very fruitful soil. However, since agriculture and agricultural activities are a little bit disregarded nowadays, we see a lot of young people migrating to other cities or migrating to foreign countries even. So this is why we as a municipality need to even engage in agricultural activities more. You all remember and unfortunately have experienced the great earthquake of 99. Unfortunately, Kocaeli, Gölcük, Düzce, Sakarya, Yalova have been impacted greatly, and we drew important lessons from this event. I was back then yet again mayor, and my house collapsed. I was excavated, I was evacuated together with some of my family members, unfortunately. So I incurred losses in my family as well. So horizontal construction efforts became a sine qua non. And if this great earthquake is going to happen, which is the case, it will. We need to engage in these activities, and there is also lots to be done when it comes to gentrification. We laid the groundwork. We engaged in the legislative work, and we engaged in respective construction activities. And this wasn't an easy task to accomplish. Gentrification is difficult to accomplish because if it weren't for the will of the citizens, it's very important for you to engage in something contradicting what the will of the citizens are. You need the support of the citizens. During gentrification efforts, we took the decision to make 3-story high buildings maximum. And what does the citizen tell you? They don't want to be displaced. They want to leave. What are you going to do then? The citizens do not accept this. So the citizens do not accept their buildings to decrease by 2 stories, for example, down to 3 stories. We've discussed this issue in the municipal council and the city council, and we took the decision to refurbish and reinforce the already existing building stock. This is a legal solution to the problem. Reinforcement of the building stock on the spot, but this is not what we wanted, but it is what the citizens wanted. And this is why we do it. So in Sakarya, you will be able to witness the initial days, the eve, so to speak, of this reinforcement of the building stock, the building inventory on the spot. Apart from that, we have set up the Urban Improvement Directorate General, which concerns itself entirely with earthquake-related issues. Old buildings need to be reinforced and made earthquake resilient, which necessitates the collaboration between our municipality and the citizens. This is crystal clear. You need this collaboration so that no casualties, no fatalities are incurred. And this is not the only thing that we engage in. We provide training and increase awareness related to things that need to be done before, during, and after such an earthquake. And this is why we set up a training center which is due to become operational. Distinguished participants, one of the most important projects of our city is Konut AŞ, which got its inspiration from Aktaş in Istanbul, and we now engage in construction activities that are compliant with earthquake rules and regulations. This is a long-term project and enables our citizens to buy a house through long-term financing at the best locations in the best possible manner. And with this project, we pay our dues and pay our contribution to render Sakarya as resilient as possible to the earthquake. And we go by the following principle. Let the people live so that the state can live. A famous saying by Sheikh Ali Bali. People need to live according to high living standards. They need to be able to increase their income, and this is our guiding principle, and this is how we conduct our work and our activities. Our main focus is to improve the life of our citizens. This is what we do. This is what our projects are catered towards. Benefit. This is my personal slogan. I want to be of benefit to each and every city dweller of Sakarya. I seek out benefit wherever possible, whenever possible. So my personal and our municipality's guiding principle is benefit. Primum non nocere, do not harm any life. So the life of our citizens is our utmost priority, and this is leading the way in our municipal efforts. I do have 1 minute left, right? No, you're over your allocated time already. Okay, let's stop with the physical projects here, but if time permits later on, or maybe at another occasion, I'll definitely talk about our social and cultural endeavors as well. Of course, we appreciate all the projects and activities of the city of Bursa, and we congratulate them, but we put one on top. Thank you very much. Sakarya is a lively city with its cultural projects, and we have just yesterday opened a cultural center, and every other day or so we have musical or theatrical events, a conference. We have monthly schedules and programs, so every day, every evening in Sakarya there is something to do. And I'm coming to a close. I have been reminded by the distinguished chair the topic of agriculture. Yesterday I was a participant at a meeting about agriculture in Balıkesir, and somebody said, I happen to be an agricultural engineer. You are 4 minutes over your time. Please respect the time of the other speakers. When the person said to me, I happen to be an agricultural engineer, I was struck. What does it mean, I happen to be? Nothing happens to be. I congratulated him that he is very valuable. I am a mayor out of my own free will, and you are an agricultural engineer out of your own free will. This is what you have to say, I told him. One word. 6,000 hectares of land are used for agricultural activities. 3,000 hectares for medicinal plants, which are exported to Germany, is what we do. This is the kind of city of which I am the mayor. Strawberries, saffron, tomatoes, saplings, anything that you can think of, you will be able to find in Sakarya. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, distinguished mayor. I've been to Sakarya together with the distinguished mayor and was able to observe his agricultural activities on the spot, one of the best practices. I wish we had more time, but you have invited us to come to Sakarya, and why not go there as the Municipal Union of Marmara? Thank you very much. I would now like to give the floor to the most experienced mayor. Has it been 40 years? Since 2004. In 2024, you will continue. Okay, I wish you a long and prosperous life. Mr. Hasan is the mayor of Büyükçekmece in Istanbul, one of the most experienced mayors ever. Thank you very much, distinguished chair. Thank you very much for having signed the MARUF project, because this will be very beneficial to the local administrative structure of Turkey, and thank you also for giving us the opportunity to host this event in Istanbul. This is already the second day, and I wish everyone a very fruitful and wonderful event. Thank you very much to my previous colleagues. I will try to make the best use of my allocated time. And what I would like to talk to you about is, right off the bat, the earthquake. Distinguished listeners, participants, distinguished audience, we've experienced the earthquake already in 1999. A very cold, harsh reality struck us, and back then I was already mayor. And even before that, I had already experienced the earthquakes in Adana and Dinar, and I have contributed to the relief efforts there. And I'm one of those mayors that have lived through many earthquakes, and I try to make my city or my district as resilient as possible based on my previous experience. Of course, the mayor of the greater municipality of Bursa plays an important role in the region of Marmara, because Bursa, unfortunately, will be one of those cities that will be affected the most in case of the great earthquake that's expected. We stayed 41. This doesn't count towards my allocated time, does it? We stayed 41 days in the school building of İmam Hatip Anadolu Lisesi on Çark Street back in 1999 in November. So I've experienced this earthquake down to my flesh and bone. And I remember a colleague of ours, a civil engineer, Cenk, who's quite a tall guy, and he was close to the area where liquefied liquefaction happened on Chark Street or close to Chark Street, and he got affected. He had to undergo treatment. Unfortunately, we're still working together with him, but this is unfortunately the sad side of those earthquakes. And we, as the municipality and as the mayor, have drawn conclusions and learned our lessons from these events. So, in brief summary, we lost 129,000 citizens in more than 60 earthquakes since 1999, and we are still not sure about the number of casualties and fatalities in the great southeastern earthquake of this year. There are still people that are missing. So after we have experienced the Gulf earthquake, that is the earthquake of '99, what did we do in our city, in my city? We immediately revised our building stock together with scientists, and we have revised the respective plans and have demolished buildings that were under severe risk. And we had a comparatively easier time because of the high levels of education and literacy that are present amongst our city dwellers in our district. And together with the gentrification law, we now have high rises and big residential areas in Büyükçekmece. And this is exactly the reason why we have gotten together in meetings where we took the decision to reinforce 48,000 buildings. After the reinforcement efforts, we handed these buildings back over to the citizens. And we didn't lose any time. We embarked on this immediately. So gentrification is not only about the renewal of a building or the reinforcement of a building. It is about redesigning the entire building from its park, from its green areas to the rooftop, and we have included this into our legend, and we built our buildings according to the Mediterranean style building directive. These are built in townhouse format, and all of the landscaping project of each building requires a certain number of trees of certain species, and you need to prove that you comply with these landscaping rules and regulations. And for that we have another team. Okay, so the front, the facade, the outer facade and landscaping need to comply with rules and regulations. And before that compliance is not met, you cannot qualify the building for gentrification. And that includes parking spaces. And this was all performed without the support of anyone. This was done in a triangle collaboration, in a collaborative triangle of municipality, authorities, and the citizens. Next week we will demolish hundreds of buildings more, and up until now 60-70% of the building stock was renewed, and the rest will be renewed hopefully inshallah in the next months up until the end of this year.
Bu bizi
So we will be able also to solve the parking problem. So this is what we did on basis of the Büyükçekmece. So these are finished products. So what are we doing for the upcoming earthquake? So between 30 and 50 square meters, we construct isolated, prefabricated or prepared buildings where people can live for a rather long time. And we are also preparing an area to be used for tents, because we all know what happened after the earthquake on the 6th of February. We have also deep wells where we drained for water, and these are waters that are drinkable, potable. And so we are pumping this groundwater up around 200-250 meters, and we are activating this 12 wells. So because we saw that water is a very important problem after the earthquake, and you cannot find one glass of water for $100. So this will be a solution for us and also for the neighboring districts of Istanbul, like Avcılar, Küçükçekmece. So our district has a large green spaces, so we will be able to have tent settlements here. And how do we get electricity to this area? How did we get energy to this area? And we are working with the firm AXA to buy generators, and this will help us solve the energy problem. We will solve the school problem for our children. Almost all of our school buildings are resistant to earthquakes, and this will be used as provisionary hospitals. In a potential Marmara earthquake, I know where it will happen. After the 1999 earthquake, I visited 22 different international earthquake meetings, and everybody said that in the close to Büyükçekmece and Silivri, in 960 and 1050 meters deep inside of the Marmara Sea, hasn't broken since the early 1900s. So this is where the earthquake is going to happen, and the magnitude will be, the last two big earthquakes was 7.4, and we are expecting to have at least a magnitude of 7.5. We should be prepared. This is what international experts said on these 22 meetings I visited all around the world after 1999. So when something happens in Marmara, it will have the interest of the whole country. So after the earthquake in 1999 in Marmara, we couldn't prepare ourselves in Istanbul. But one thing that the government did, the large bridges, schools, and hospitals are prepared. But where will people die? Housing, condos, apartments. And did we do anything there? No, nothing. So if it should come to an earthquake, we will lose around 1 million people at least. But you cannot say for certain, because nobody knows when and where the earthquake will happen. So the Istanbul has lost a lot of time since '99, so this is really sad. It saddens me to know that as a person and as a mayor, we have 7 years left, because every prognosis shows that before 2030, this earthquake in Marmara will happen. It's unavoidable. We know, but we don't want to believe. So, as a district in Istanbul, every district in Istanbul should prepare themselves, also in Izmir, and this is my responsibility, and this is what we did. In the meantime, we have a missing inventory, a missing stock of 30–35%, and after we finish this, we will be in good conscience that we did everything to prepare ourselves for the earthquake, and we will have times in the aftermath of the earthquake that the communications and the transportation will be down, and we are prepared for everything. So we went to Mehmet Özhaseki, to the minister, as the union of the municipalities in Marmara. We went there and gave him our report, and in the urban transformation, the rate was lowered from 3/4 to 1/50th, and we would like to thank our minister, because this makes our life easier. So the reason why the projects are delayed we sold the areas, we sold the ground where we need to do this urban transformation, and for people who didn't want to sell, we bought them with the enforcement of the state and paid their money to their banks. But we should never forget that people are dying, and but after this 7 years, for the next 7 years, Marmara, Istanbul should expect a big earthquake, and this is our responsibility, and we cannot sit on our hands. We have to do something. Yes, the program is, in our program, the last speaker is our youngest participant, and I don't want her to speak at last, so I'm going to do a positive discrimination and give the word to her. Dear guests, dear mayors, dear young people, and we have also workers of the municipalities, and I would like to welcome you. Yes, the municipalities and their respective cities and provinces are different, of course. Although we live in the Marmara region, we meet here together, but we have different structures. And Bilecik has a totally different structure. It has squeezed in between the larger metropolitan municipalities, and it has also a different elevated structures. I am an architect, and I'm working for 1.5 years as a deputy mayor, but you know the story why I'm here, so I'm not going to explain this here. So what can we do in the cities, in our cities? So each and every mayor showed what they did very well in their respective cities and districts, and a part of our energy we will focus on infrastructure, and the other part to the social works we are doing. But today we are talking about structures and earthquakes. So this is, as an architect, my subject. So let me give you an example from my city. Yes, the cities are living beings like we. They go into depression like human beings, they live like human beings, and depression can be seen as an earthquake. So in the Bahçeşehir University, we did a study and said hello to our 9,000-year-old neighbors, because back then, where we rode our bicycles while we were children, there was an analysis has been done with through the university, and they found something behind the ground, under the ground, and we started digging there. I was there too as a volunteer, and I'm very interested in archaeology. So it's not an easy job, I have to say. So after the excavations, there were some skeletons found, some signs of life or earlier life was found. But this was back then also a stream bed, a river bottom. And we didn't know, so we built buildings there, and we are destroying the ecosystem with the exhaust gases, with the greenhouse gases, you know, everything. And so this led to an increase in precipitation. So more rainfall means, of course, that we have floodings here. So the nature has taught us our place, showed us our place. So what we started making humanitarian aid there and started rebuilding infrastructure. And with a good infrastructure investment, we saved this place from floods and deluges. That's not enough, of course. We have also building stocks or building inventories. And Bilecik is not a very complicated area, and it's rather solid. The ground is rather solid, but there are some parts of Bilecik where the buildings were built on stream beds, river bottoms. And of course, we were also shocked after the earthquake on the 6th of February, and we all see what we all do for life, to save life, and we are working with the, we signed protocols with the Chamber of Architects and Engineers in Bursa, and we controlled some of the and monitored some of the buildings, and we see that some columns were missing underneath buildings. And we have also a very old mosque, and we had also here some waterfalls, and these waterfalls weren't natural and clean waterfalls. They were dirty, polluted. So we started with a transfer station. We built up transfer stations here to clean up these polluted waters. And we talked about the riverbeds and the buildings on these riverbeds. So to have a zone for zoning for housing, we make here some controls and send it also to the ministry. We want to do our job well because this is our responsibility. So we shouldn't fall victim to the idea of, or to the notion of unearned income. We should more focus on the people we are serving for. And we live in these cities, so we should work with the right, we should work here fairly and justly and work with advisors. When you are a mayor, it's not enough, because as a mayor you cannot know everything. You have to work together with advisors, with experts, but you have to open them the way so they can work. And of course we wish that our services are sustainable and are there for a long time. Of course we are doing politics, and our succeeders will take on the mantle to continue our work as well as we did with our predecessors. So we have to work with proper materials which are according to the nature. So with natural products we should build, and we are doing, of course, a social aspect, but we don't need to talk about this right now because you can also see this on our websites if you are interested what we are doing on the social aspect of things. So I don't want to bore you with that, but I would like to thank for this very important meeting, and thank you for the invitation. And if you have questions later on, I would like to answer them as well. Thank you, Ms. Mayor. I would like to go to the district, Gaziosmanpaşa district of Istanbul. Hasan Tahsin Usta is our mayor there, and he will talk about how he will talk about the Gaziosmanpaşa perspective, and then we will go to Gelibolu in the Dardanelles, and Ergün Bey will have the last word because he has an experience as a mayor and also worked as the president of the Housing and Development Administration of Turkey, and he will talk last, so we can have also our listeners here, our spectators here in the room. Thank you, Chair, and I would also like to thank our mayors, which we have listened to, Bursa and Sakarya. What they did in Bursa and Sakarya is important, of course, and the mayors in the districts of Istanbul, we are trying to lead and manage these processes. When we talk about cities, cities are a accumulation of people where who are obliged to live together, and we are depending on each other. So aged cities and old buildings and natural disasters and a potential earthquake builds a risk, and we cannot stand by as spectators. We have to be leaders here in this area. Of course, during the management of these subjects, I want to talk a little bit ironically, we're talking about resilient cities, and we're talking about urban transformation and earthquake. And we are one of the municipalities, district municipalities, who did the most in this area. So when it comes to urban transformation and earthquakes, I want to share some of our experiences with you. So let's assume you have the strongest boxer in the world, and it just gets into the ring and fights his biggest opponent. And 5 minutes later, he goes back into the ring and fights with another one. So 5 minutes later, he's fighting another fighter, the third one. So he's the best boxer, the strongest boxer of the world, but he gets tired. And in the first qualification, he may be disqualified, he gets knocked out. So a good athlete has to know when to stop, when to rest, and train again. So let's take this metaphor. So we have an earthquake, so this is one match, and then there is flooding, and then this is the second fighter, and then we have another disaster, natural disaster. But of course, like people, like athletes, cities are also prone to getting knocked out. So we need time to renewal. And the only way to have a renewal in cities is urban transformation. When we look at Istanbul, when we think about the Marmara fault lines and what happened in Sakarya, and after what happened in the earthquake on the 6th of February, our first priority is the earthquake, second priority is earthquake, and third priority is earthquake. So there is no other way around it. And we need urban transformation for that. Every municipality and the public opinion sees this. And 1/3 of Gaziosmanpaşa is risk areas are risk areas, so we had a huge responsibility. This meant that we had to find out what the demands, what the needs of our district is, and we started applying this bit by bit. And Ergün Bey was the president of TOKİ back then, and we worked together with TOKİ and with the Ministry of Environment Urbanism. We talked about that this is a city, this is a district we have to save. So we had two challenges before us back then. One of them was that the people who said that urban transformation is a way to gain money, and this led to a postponing and to a delay. And secondly, we were standing in court because there was always an indictment. So the indictment was done by the Chamber of Architects and Engineers, for example. So after these lawsuits, we had to be successful, and at the same time we had to manage the urban transformation. And we continued working on this area, and up until now we planned 15,000 houses and condos, and we will finish them up until next year. But all of these delays led to a loss of our performance. And this was also a large financial burden on the municipality. And with the call of the president and with the cooperation with TOKİ, with the ministry, and with private companies, we did an investment of over 6 billion on investment, and we hope that this investment will be 20 billion. So this money does not go away, it stays in the city, but we shouldn't forget this. But we have to do this transformation. All of our mayors said the same thing. Büyükçekmece is a relatively new city, and they are working to make this transformation. Although it's a new city, we need an urban transformation also there, especially in older cities, of course. We believe that cities are the soul of the ones who live there. And cities have their own souls, and they are born, they live, and they die. And of course, they need also interest, they need, and you have to attend to them, you have to care for them, and the rights and the responsibilities which are defined by the laws, by the codes, and we expect the Chamber of Architects and Engineers to have a pioneering role here. I went to the chamber and I said, okay, something is missing from what we are doing, and we are doing something wrong maybe. But what is your suggestion? And there were no suggestions from these chambers. And this is a call for help. I'm also an engineer, a civil engineer. And as an engineer, I'm telling them that we need the help of the Chamber of Architects and Engineers. Everyone who will help, who will follow this procedure is needed. We need every help we can get. We watched what we all did, not only for the infrastructure, but also culture and arts. This is also what we need for our cities. And together with all of the things we have done here, we saw that a city is like a history book. It has the history of the people who are living there, and everything we have experienced in this city, in this district, we put in form of a book. As an engineer, it's not easy to write a book, but whatever we did in the last 9 years in terms of transformation, we put it into this book, and everything we did was seen as correct unfortunately after the 6th of February, after the big earthquake. And there is a potential earthquake which threatens Istanbul, and we need resilient cities. And my district is the densest district in Istanbul. The number of people living here is huge. So we need a solid infrastructure here. Our goal is we want the cities we are managing to be resilient and civilized. And we have an opportunity here, and we have to use it. Whatever the terms are, we as the municipalities have to follow this, have to manage this process. Earthquake is our common problem. And all of the needs, all of the challenges, all of the threats should be redefined. The data we have should be actualized, and we need to have an earthquake action plan in the local area, in districts, and in the whole city. But that's not enough. Our political responsibilities and our political demands we should put aside. We have to make a mobilization for preparation to the earthquake. But this is not something we can do alone as mayors. The ministry, we talked with the ministry just 2 days ago, and we were also insistent on having this new code, and everybody thinks about earthquake and what can we do for this, against this earthquake. So our solution is to get together with the political parties, with the Chamber of Architects and Engineers and municipalities. We have to come together and discuss this subject. And this is my call. And I would also like to thank at this point to the organizers and representative of the MARUF for this organization. And thank you also for listening.
Thank you very much, distinguished Mayor. Without further ado, I would like to give the floor to the Mayor of Gelibolu, Nursal Bey. I think we are the smallest municipality, but Bilecik is, I think, smaller than us. Anyway, small but important nonetheless. I speak on behalf of the city of Gelibolu, distinguished mayors, distinguished chair, distinguished participants. So, the more we come to a close, the more things become urgent. We engage in problem solving or problem solution finding. Is this enough? No, but it's nonetheless a great effort on our behalf. Sakarya, Bursa, Istanbul, of course, Büyükçekmece, and the other district of Gaziosmanpaşa in Istanbul. Once these districts and cities fear a potential earthquake, this anxiety, this fear is felt over on our shores as well, because people start migrating, they change their settlement, they move. So this is why it's important to take up not only specific cities, but the region of Marmara in its totality. There are certain things to be done prior to an earthquake, during, and also things to be done vis-à-vis the challenges that will come about after the earthquake. What's the potential for collaboration here? How can we share responsibilities, and how can we solve problems and challenges? And when we ask these questions, different topics come up. And I'm sure in the upcoming days, this issue will be taken up with urgency, because that is exactly what it is. This is an urgent issue. So whenever an earthquake expert makes a TV appearance, be assured that there are movements in the earth someplace in the region. And because of this, agricultural spaces and territories are opened for construction purposes. But in order to ensure continuity of life, we need to hold agriculture close and dear. Of course, we need construction, we need housing, but construction zones need to be well defined and limited to those areas only. I'm an architect by trade, and this is why I try to focus on my trade here. We've seen, distinguished mayors, that infrastructure is so very important when it comes to the earthquake, because we've seen it with our own bare eyes. Infrastructure facilities such as waterways, sewage systems, etc., they become very vulnerable or are already very vulnerable, and on top of that we have the earthquake and the whole system collapses. So this is why we need to make these infrastructure facilities resilient and adopt a holistic approach. This is what we need to do. But our first priority should be life. And this is why we are entitled, we have the right to safe buildings. And people are afraid, and it had a negative impact on people's psychology because they are afraid. And people started back migrating to rural areas, away from the cities this time. And this brings another set of challenges with it, because you have to provide water, you have to provide those rural areas with better infrastructure such as electricity generation, and so on and so forth. And we have a very irregular urbanization process ongoing in our big cities. And the mayors on this panel represent the most fruitful soil and territory in the country, but very rich in agricultural land that can be cultivated. But we see no problem in opening these agricultural territories and lands to construction. And we see that from time to time, rules and regulations and pieces of legislation do not suffice to face the challenges. There are loopholes, so this is why I am convinced that rules and regulations and legislation needs to be revised as soon as possible. According to my latest calculations, I have come to realize that the data I used back in the day when I did my construction and zoning calculations, that they are outdated. They have become obsolete because new data is coming in. So we need to use the latest data that reflects the situation on the ground. As I've already mentioned, we also need to tackle the issue of what to do after the earthquake, vis-à-vis all the different challenges that will certainly occur. And one of the most trusted institutions in the country, in my humble opinion, is our national solidarity. National solidarity, or thanks to national solidarity that was shown after the February earthquakes, we were able to overcome at least part of the challenges that came about. And something similar was already uttered by our distinguished representative from Japan in one of the previous sessions. So if we plan accordingly, if we plan according to the latest data, if we design the trajectory aptly enough, then we will be able to overcome challenges much quicker. So everything boils down to planning. If you don't leave it up to the last minute, if you plan well in advance, you will be able to cover ground to a larger extent. I'm coming to the topic of water. We have a dam close to our city in our region, which provides water to a couple of hundred of people, including the city of Tekirdağ and the entire peninsula. So when it comes to water, to potable water, we can consider ourselves quite lucky. When it comes to agricultural water, we have some challenges there, but we have come to realize once again that especially in times of arid stretches of summer, for example, where there's no precipitation, water is ever so more important. And we need concrete planning when it comes to water as well, both in terms of potable water and in terms of water for agricultural purposes. And let's not forget about the social dimension of urbanization and construction. And it's not only about the earthquake, it's also about other disasters such as the pandemic, for example. It looks like we focus a lot on the earthquake right now, but there are other types of disasters that need to be taken into consideration. I'm assuming I ran out of time already. Okay, so I return the word and thank you very much for your attention. Of course, we've taken much longer than was anticipated. Thank you very much to the audience as well for your patience and for your attention. But I'm definitely convinced that we should still factor in a Q&A session, albeit a short one. After Mr. Ergün's speech, I prefer to collect all the questions. Please hand them out in written format. I will collect all the questions and then ask them collectively. Mr. Ergün, you have the last word, and then we will proceed with the Q&A session. Yes, thank you very much for giving me the floor, distinguished chair, distinguished mayors, colleagues, distinguished audience. I have trouble listening to anyone more than 45 minutes, so I really have a hard time attending long meetings. So I hear you and I feel you. I remember a colleague of mine, an elderly colleague of mine, once telling me, nobody ever was criticized because they went short and brief in their speeches. So this is what I will try to do. So I know Mr. Ekrem, Mrs. Alinur, all the other mayors and my co-panelists, very valuable, and they do wonderful work in terms of municipal activities in Turkey. I would have loved to listen to Mr. Ekrem talk about agricultural activities that are conducted in his city. Likewise, Mrs. Alinur and others. So lots of commonalities, and this is why I did not prepare a presentation. I'll just briefly touch about the fact that I have been acting as an engineer for the past 35 years. I am an engineer by trade. I had many functions and many chapeaux, the latest of which is my capacity as a mayor. I also used to head the official housing authority and had other jobs and functions as well. So I don't want you to misunderstand. When I say something, of course you're recording and this is not set in stone, but I still want you to make a notice of it, and I will try to keep it short and limit myself to 10 minutes. I headed Turkey for many years, and I can say the following. Without forgetting the main topic of this session, which is resilience in cities, I would like to dwell on the very pathology that exists in Turkey, which focuses on all the shortcomings in the country. We couldn't do this, we weren't able to do that. That's the main discourse. But it needs to be taken into account that a lot has happened in Turkey in the past decades. And I've been to all provinces in Turkey, and I've seen one-on-one the change in the infrastructure of the country, be it roads and railways, schools and other official institutions and buildings. There is one reality. Yes, we are an earthquake country. We need to make our private housing units resilient to the earthquake as well. This is important to save lives. Turkey, the Public Housing Authority, engaged back in the day in more than 300 urban transformation or gentrification projects. And many of my mayor colleagues talked about urban transformation in their regions as well, but I need to say that each province, or each city rather, is unique in its circumstances and in its environment. Urban gentrification means demolishing an old building and establishing a new one. But the gentrified or transformed buildings will become obsolete in 50, 70 years from now on, because there will be new material available. So by urban transformation, we are actually engaging in something that is not sustainable at all. I don't have time, unfortunately, to engage in all the topics I would like to talk about. Decentralization, for example. Gaziosmanpaşa and Fatih are good examples for this. These districts have neighborhoods where more than 40,000 people are living in an area of 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer. This is huge. 45,000 people. So, given this huge dimension of population density in such a small area, you have to engage in decentralization, otherwise you won't be functional. Another thing I would like to touch upon is the fact that our main shortcoming is not a lack of knowledge or information, it's a lack of capital. We are not engaging in savings as much as we would have to. Because all the infrastructure investments are only possible thanks to the public savings generated. Can infrastructure investments be financed by private savings of individual citizens? No, it has to be public funds. And even in large-scale disasters such as the last one, the latest one, even public funds won't suffice and private capital will be required. The thing is that we dream as if we were a country that has a per capita income of 80 or 100,000 USD, but we forget that our per capita income is only 8 to 10,000. So we need to take into consideration our own circumstances and our own potential and the possibilities in our country. Mr. Hasan is our friend, he's my colleague, I know him, and he's very valuable. But I need to say the following. If your city has a lower population density, you can engage architects and create something. I say this to the mayors, I say this to Mr. Hasan, to all our friends, and most of the time this is presented as a success story. However, if you are experienced both in local and national scale efforts and endeavors, and this is something I say over and over again in all kinds of meetings, you definitely will know that we need a master plan, a nationwide master plan. You cannot save Gelibolu or Balıkesir or any other city through individual efforts. We need a master plan taking into consideration potential industrial zones, potential areas for transformation, potential population density increases or decreases, transportation accesses, etc., etc. We need to make the decisions, or our decisions, based on this master plan. So, one of our mayors on this panel takes his decisions based on agricultural potential in his city, and thank God he does that. So somebody at least focuses on agriculture, which is important. So I'm an oldie in this profession, I have to say, and back in the day, Çankırı used to lose its population to Istanbul. Most of the people would be resettling in Istanbul. And I can give you other examples where people would migrate to our city, but back in the day we had a lack of housing. And most of the fruitful valleys are to be found in industrial cities in Turkey, like Bursa, Adapazarı, and other cities. So what we need to talk about is the following. Istanbul has a population of between 16 to 18 million officially. So urban transformation in this country basically is comprised of integrating zones and relocating people into the bigger city, in this case Istanbul. And I've said exactly the same thing on many TV appearances as well. If you need to button up your shirt in the correct order, Turkey has the necessary pieces of legislation in place. And I say this with good conscience. And Turkey is one of the very few countries that has the potential and the capacity to engage in such urban transformation of these large dimensions. One of the very few. But as I've already said, we need a macro-scaled, holistic approach. This is what we need to do. For example, anything that is not decentralized in Istanbul is doomed to fail. Both within the limits of the greater municipality and outside. And my last word is the following. We are transporting water to the city. And if we grow even more, we will have to get water from places as far as Çankırı or Sinop even. These are smaller scale cities, and this is what we need to do. We need to engage in the construction of smaller scale cities. This is an entirely different topic. I just wanted to scratch the surface here. This is what I had to share. Thank you very much. Don't give away the microphone. One of our participants asked the following question. Is it possible for the city to be rebuilt with an entirely new set of cadastral rules and regulations, such as cities like Barcelona? The question is not addressed to you, but you get the question. I didn't understand the question. Is it possible to rebuild our cities based on the Parisian or Barça models? Well, there are many examples. A specific area in Barcelona was rebuilt. They don't have so many examples either. Paris, I'm not really familiar with. I visited it, but I'm not really familiar with the details. Yes, it's just one district in Barcelona that was rebuilt in that sense. What I was trying to say was the following. There is no Western example that we can take as a source of inspiration for retransformation or for transformation. We need to come up with our own example. The mayor of Antep is not with us today, but we're talking about a surface area of 11 square kilometers that will, in the end, house more than 1,000 peoples with low density, an ecological example of urbanization. And this cannot set an example for us because there is no demand for this. There is no demand for such low densities. We have larger demands. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
And other participants ask following questions. We talked about other subjects, but what about, is there plans for transportation when it comes to evacuation, for example, in times of disaster? Yes, the mass transport, or the public transport, is one of the problems every municipality in the world is faced with. And we went just recently to the area where we talked with the city council in Muş. And Muş is a small country, a small city in the east of Turkey, and it's a very small city. It has a population of 150,000. And what is your main problem, we asked? And they said, well, it is mass transport, public transport. So everybody has this problem. In Gaziantep, Nurdağ, Islahiye, and together with our chair, we went also to 17 days in Antakya after the earthquake. So all of these buildings, they were so close, and because they were standing so close after the earthquake, it was an access through roads were not possible anymore. So this is also not done only by physical transformation. You have to also to transform the culture in the districts of the people. And public transport is one of the most important subjects, regardless of earthquake or not. I didn't intervene a lot because we are short on time, but a resilient city should also be resilient to social structures or social challenges like poverty or migration. And managing the challenges which has brought upon the cities through poverty is also something that has to be done by the municipalities. So the conflicts you have in cities, in municipalities, don't think of it as here with only these municipalities. There are municipalities in the world where tribes live, and these tribes are on the warpath with each other. So this is also a challenge. So for Istanbul, you cannot do a evacuation on land. I think that the evacuation has to be done by sea and air. Is there a management for the rent problem? No, but I don't think it's going to be possible. So, and the General Director of Natural Disasters is needed for each and every municipality in cities as well as the districts. Yes, that is a question. And also communication during natural disasters. Was there a communications infrastructure built upon the municipalities of the Marmara region? No, it is. We don't have this like this, but we will talk about this in our next session in our next committee session. And as the Metropolitan Municipality, we're building an infrastructure for that, but we should also work on this on the Marmara level. Yes, I will give you the word. Just let me tell you the following. We build up the General Directorate of Natural Disasters is the next question. So, is there a General Director of Natural Disasters? Is it established? Let's start with this question. In the near future, we will talk about two subjects, like I said. This one is drought and climate change, and the second one is urban transformation, and in regards, and disaster subjects in general. So for both, we need general directorates, and we established the general directorate for both of them. And a separate team is responsible for these two subject matters. Yes, we have established a General Directorate of Natural Disasters, but not only establishing, you have to, of course, fill it with content. What kind of measures could be taken? And we have a machine park, of course, and we have also personnel. They went to the earthquake region and they talked about their experiences when they went back. Of course, we went as well to see what happened there in the aftermath of the earthquake, and we tried to find some lessons learned from this earthquake, and we are adding this information to our inventory. And you talked about, can it be like Paris, like the urban transformation? Yes, with urban transformation, is that impossible because it's a huge area, but we're opening new living spaces, and if we plan the infrastructure for these new living spaces, like we see abroad, like the zoning and the bike lanes and parks and recreational areas, for example, of course, with this information we can do better projects. That is possible, yes.
Sırayla mı gidiyoruz?
Evet, evet, buyurun.
Müsaade ederseniz iki hususa temas etmek istiyorum.
Buyurun.
Afet işlerini ben...
Katılımcılar hala ilgiyle buradalar. Bu salonda başka bir organizasyon yoksa biraz var mı? Maalesef. Kaç dakikada boşaltmalıyız? Hemen mi? Şöyle çok hızlıca cevaplayalım. Soruları cevaplanamayan arkadaşlar salonun dışında belediye başkanlarımıza
So
sorularını
let's try to
birebir.
answer the questions, and those who are not answered, you can ask outside. Maruf and the team, Cemil, as a general secretary, we would like to thank him and his team. The mayor of Fatih had painted us a general framework. But since the 50s, if this country didn't make a master plan for each and every city. The responsible people are the government since the 50s, and we should ask them, we should question them. And when the earthquake happens in the next 7 years, the most successful mayor will be the one in whose responsible area the less number of people have died. So when it comes to planning, it's not only planning, we have to look at it scientifically. We shouldn't forget that up until 1992, the scientists in this country, architects and showed 150,000 different fault lines, 150 fault lines. And now we have 550 fault lines. And there are fault lines where we never expected it. So we don't have a scientific infrastructure, we don't have a planning infrastructure. So we shouldn't wait on these infrastructures. We as mayors, we are as successful, as much risky buildings we are demolishing and building new ones and saving lives. And you can see it at the example of Paris and Barcelona for this. The biggest problem of Istanbul in the aftermath of the earthquake will not be only Istanbul. Not only Istanbul will be affected, also whole Europe, because there are so many investments and so many number of personnel in Istanbul that comes from the EU. So this would lead to a global problem. So it would lead to a deficit intercontinentally. So it's not about Büyükçekmece, it's not about Marmara. The whole world will lose in the aftermath of this coming earthquake. So I would like to thank everybody for the questions and for the presentations. Thank you also, and MARUF. Yes, I would like to thank too. We have also established a General Director of Natural Disasters, and there are examples from Paris and Barcelona. We are much more advanced than them. We went and see an urban transformation in London, which has been built in 20 years, and everything was paid by the state. And we would make 15 times a larger urban transformation than that. And Ergün talked about the following. When we started, we make a comprehensive planning, and in the macro scale, for each and every district and city, the planning has to be done. And we can ask, of course, why it's not been done. But not only the managers are responsible, also the city planners, the Chamber of Architects and engineers, everybody should take their responsibility.
Evet.
Okay, so we built our natural disaster coordinator's office, and we're right now stocking the emergency materials, and we're preparing the infrastructure project. I'd like to cut it short and hand over to my mayor. While I believe those who talk less is concongratulated, we also built our department of disaster management. I wish for the fruitfulness of this meeting. I asked for floor last year. We did a huge natural disaster drill. And with all the NGOs and the public authorities, we even demolished the building. We instilled a virtual earthquake. And of course, our local media is very strong. There was a headline about that. An industrialist, a tycoon, phoned me and said, well, don't you have any other job to do? And I said, what is this about? And he said, well, the economy is strained, you know. You're here doing the earthquake drills. Are you trying to distort the psychology of the people? You've put together all these men here. Don't you have anything else to do? And he said, well, how are we going to develop economy, increase exports? So this is a culture. Look at the Japanese. From their 5-year-old to 90-year-old, everyone basically made it. a lifestyle of earthquake with the urban regeneration and everything. And you know, it was just mentioned it's the responsibility of the authorities, but no, everyone is responsible. Each and every citizen in the society, from 5-year-old to 90-year-old. Okay, thank you very much. So Emrah Furkan Düzgiden asked about, would city councils be help when talking about these issues? Yes, they would. We can think about that. And Okan Sarıoğlu from Hatay said, the public buildings now are unable to render services because of the earthquake. Are you looking into those? Yes, we are. We're checking them, each and every one of them. Also, do you think that the government can manage the authority of construction totally? Said Adem Avşar. Well, it would be too problematic, and it's not the right thing to coordinate everything from the center. Another question asked the disaster kitchen and urban regeneration building screens. Can you talk about them? No, I cannot, because it will take awful lot of time, and our time is up. Financing, can the government offer financing for that, the entirety? Maybe the government should cover that. But you know, please remember, there is nothing called free, okay? You should be buying it from someone else. Okay, the government can cover, but the government collects taxes and, basically disseminate taxes to others. So it's not a solution in democracies. If I missed anything else, we can just be there out of the hall for 5 minutes, but our time is up. We need to go. Thank you very much. Thank you all the mayors.